Muted.
Okay, ma'am, we are live now.
Hello, everyone. A very good evening to each one of you present in this session. On behalf of Rand Publishers, I would now like to announce the topic for today's session: Navigating the Macroeconomic Dimensions of Indian Inclusive Growth Framework. I would now like to request our participants to post their comments and queries in the YouTube chat box. And I would also like to let you know that the feedback form for this webinar will be sent to the respective mail IDs of the registered participants. And joining with us today is Dr. Priyanka Murya. Welcome, ma'am. A highly talented academic professional, and her areas of specialization are economics and general management. She has obtained a PhD in economics from Punjab School of Economics under Guru Nanak Dev University in the year 2014 and has qualified UGC NET in management in the year 2008. She holds a master's in business economics with distinction and a PG DBM from New Delhi Institute of Management. She has cleared CA Inter from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in the year 2006. Now, I would now like to point out some of the major achievements and awards of Dr. Priyanka Murya. Second rank holder in pre-PhD coursework with the CGPA of 9 in Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. Qualified UGC NET management in first attempt in 2008. Topper of Masters of Business Economics with a percentage of 73.22. Third rank holder in Guru Nanak Dev University. First division distinction in Masters of Business Economics. Madam further holds to her credit various certificates of participation and appreciation. Dr. Priyanka is actively involved in many cultural events of the institute where she works in and has been passionate about teaching. She has previously worked in the capacity of a lecturer in economics and general management and is currently working as an associate professor of economics at Institute of Innovation and Technology and Management, Janakpuri Institutional Area, New Delhi. Dr. Priyanka Murya has authored books, chapters and numerous research papers published by both the national and international journals. She has presented research papers in seminars and conferences and has herself attended seminars, conferences, and faculty development programs. Ryan Publishers feel privileged to have Dr. Priyanka as our resource person. Now, I would like to request her to please take over this session. Over to Madam.
Thank you so much, Shalini ma'am, and Ryan Publishers for considering me and my for the purpose of presenting a webinar on navigating the macroeconomic dimensions of Indian inclusive framework. So, as far as this webinar is concerned, I would first like to explain the outlines of the presentation, means all the content that I'm going to cover in this webinar. First one being the theoretical or conceptual framework that pertains to inclusive growth. The second one is planning initiatives that have been undertaken since the commencement of first 5-year plan till the 3 annual plans that those were introduced by NITI Aayog. The next one is the macroeconomic indicators that basically exhibit the impediments that inhibit the inclusive growth paradigm in Indian economy. Then follows the conclusion and the ways ahead. What can be done in order to make the Indian inclusive framework a strengthened one? So this would be covered in the ways ahead. Prior to explaining the conceptual framework of inclusive growth, I would like to throw some light on the word this first word inclusive, and then I'll be explaining the concept of growth, and then I'll be integrating these two concepts, and then I'll be coming to the concept of inclusive growth. What do we mean by inclusive? Inclusive means considering all those people who have been somehow, been excluded, maybe from formal financial institutions, banks, or something wherein these people, their presence is required, and they have somehow been excluded. So the motive is to include them, to consider them, and to feel their presence. And these people may be with all respect to the caste system and the regimes which are being institutions that are being followed in Indian economy. With all respect to that, even then, what we call the major researchers and authors, they say that in inclusive setup, all the SCs, STs, OBCs, differently abled people, senior citizens, poor people, marginalized groups, these are a part of inclusive framework. Then what do we mean by growth? If we talk about the concept of growth, we generally, in common parlance, we say that growth means growth in the GDP. It is something more than that. When we talk about growth, we say that, it is somewhat related to the growth of the GDP. In addition, GDP is nothing. The gross domestic product means the money value of all the final goods and services that have been produced in an economy in an accounting year. Okay, so we say that we need to consider the monetary value of whatever is being produced in the economy, but yes, we need to exclude the intermediate consumption from that. What is intermediate consumption? I would like to explain this concept with the help of an example. Intermediate consumption means if we are producing yarn from cotton, and then finally the cloth is being produced, then cotton, then yarn, and then the cloth. In the entire production process, the cotton and the yarn, these are the intermediate products. So their value has to be excluded when we actually consider the value of the final product in the economy. So one is GDP. Growth is defined by GDP. The second one is national income, means the money value of all the things that are being produced in an economy. But here we consider the net factor income from abroad also. It may be positive, it may be negative, depending on the outflows and inflows that are taking place in an Indian economy. It is also expanded to a particular concept which is also known as per capita income. Per capita income means a concept wherein the value of national income is divided by the number of number of people who are there in the economy, or we say that when we divide the national income by the population, we get the per capita income. Nowadays, the economists, they started brooding about it, and they started discussions on it, that the per capita income should be a part of it, or when the inflationary pressures are there, it is real per capita income that matters. It is actually the real per capita income that matters. So here, the growth is studied in terms of GDP. The growth is studied in terms of national income. The growth is studied in terms of per capita income. The growth is also studied in terms of real per capita income. But in majority of the studies, the GDP has been considered as a major criteria. So here, we want to make sure that the people who have been excluded from the system, they should be a part of the formal growth structure of an economy. And when we integrate these concepts, the term inclusive, and then the growth, all these parameters of growth, GDP, NDP, and NNPFC, national income, per capita income, all these concepts when collaborated together make the inclusive growth framework. There are numerous studies on this particular concept. However, till now, in 2020 has come, even now there is no single study that comprehensively defines the concept of inclusive growth. Different authors and economists, they have defined the concept of inclusive growth in their own terms. It was a study that was carried out in 2007 by Ali and Son. They defined inclusive growth as a function of social opportunity function. Social opportunity function was again a function of average opportunities available and access to opportunities. It was asserted that what is required in an economy is average opportunities available. How many opportunities are available to the people, and is there any system wherein all the people who are there in the economy, they can access those opportunities? Number one, opportunities should be there. Second one, they should be supplemented by the access to opportunities. We should have the right to access to those opportunities. Supposing I'm residing in an area wherein opportunities are there, but I'm not able to access those opportunities, maybe because of the family system wherein I am residing, or maybe because of the social rituals, or maybe because of any social setup which is not allowing me to go and work, maybe because I'm a woman and I cannot work. So all those institutional parameters, if they are posing a threat for the growth of an economy, then it poses a big question mark on the inclusive growth setup of any economy, not only the Indian economy, but any economy I'm talking about. In the same year, Ari and Zhuang, they also carried out a study wherein they said that the growth has to be coupled with the equal opportunity setup. Means equal opportunity should be there. There should be equality of opportunity. Everybody, whether the person is from SC, whether the person is ST. Again, I'm saying I'm giving respect to them.
No, ma'am, we are not yet able to see the presentation. Yeah, it's visible right now.
Okay. So the first 5-year plan, wherein targeted growth, we were able to achieve more than the targeted growth. It was a successful plan. However, because Indian economy was in a poor state, it was trying to revive on its own. So in that plan, the concept of inclusiveness was not discussed. In the second 5-year plan, which was from 1956 till 1961, the growth, because we were able to perform well in agricultural sector, which was the primary sector. The aim was the target of we targeted the industrial sector this time, which is the manufacturing sector. So we thought that we should now focus on industrial sector, so that amongst the three sectors of the economy, which are primary, secondary and tertiary sector was not much discussed here. But here in this plan, we emphasize that industrial sector should be promoted, because we were able to perform well in the primary sector. So it was thought that industrial sector would work for us this time. So the industrial sector was the growth of industrial sector was emphasized, especially the heavy and basic industries, they were emphasized. Once again, the concept of inclusive growth was not discussed here. Then in the next third 5-year plan, the growth of agriculture was once again emphasized. It was emphasized that it is required that not only we should not have this distribution, emphasize only agricultural sector, we should for only the industrial sector. Here in this particular case, because approximately 70% of the population was dependent on the agriculture, in this particular plan, we focused on the agricultural growth. And along with the agricultural growth, it was emphasized that industrial growth should be promoted, and the role of agriculture in stimulating the agricultural growth was also emphasized here. It was also opened at that time that into the agriculture would be promoted, the exports would be promoted, and case exports would be there, we would be able to extract the foreign exchange, the earnings of other economies, and the funds of other economies would float to our economy, because if we are exporting our products to them, then their money would float in our economy. So this was the purpose here, that the agriculture was promoted. Once again, in this sector, inclusive concept growth was not discussed. Thereafter, the 3 annual plans were there. Why these 3 annual plans were there? Because of the Chinese aggression in 1962, because of Indo-Pak war in 1965, and the drought condition that emerged in 1966. It devastated the Indian economic scenario at that time. And at that time, 3 annual plans were introduced, and it was emphasized that yes, once again, the growth or the promotion of agriculture would be required, and whatever food shortages have occurred because of the drought and those natural calamities, they should be worked on. So in order to make them better, also the agriculture was emphasized. If you notice carefully, in first 4-5-year plans, there was no mention of inclusiveness, and this was quite obvious also, because Indian economy, which was in a poor state, which was trying to revive but was not able to revive at that time, considering the poor people, considering the marginalized groups, downtrodden groups, it was nobody thought of all those things. The efforts were being made to ensure the growth in the economy, and the concept of inclusiveness was somewhere hidden, or it was somewhere unanswered. In fourth 5-year plan, once again the agricultural growth was emphasized, inclusiveness once again absent. Then in the fifth plan, the emphasis was laid down on the reduction of poverty. It was asserted that yes, there are there are poor masses who should be provided basic amenities, and they should be uplifted. Their levels of earning should be uplifted. They should be provided certain income generating activities. We call them IGAs. They should be provided with income generating activities, and so that they get indulged. And the major emphasis in this particular case was on the promotion of employment of the people. Via employment, poverty reduction was aimed at in this fifth 5-year plan, and the rolling plans which were there for 3 years, 1978 till 1980. In sixth plan, in 1980 till 85, efforts were once again poverty alleviation or mitigation was targeted. Efforts were also made in order to reduce the level of unemployment. Here, in this particular case, one more variable was emphasized, and that was that we should, enhance the level of GDP and thereby enhance the level of national income. Once again, we talked about inclusiveness in fifth plan and sixth plan. Certain mention was there. Some of the mentions were there. However, the word inclusive setup, inclusive growth was not clearly defined. However, certain parameters were considered, certain economic variables were considered, which were mitigation of the poverty, rise in the level of employment. So these were the parameters that were considered. However, much discussion on inclusiveness concept was not there in these particular plans. Although they talked about it, but elaborations were not there in these two plans. This was followed by the seventh plan, wherein once again rising the level of production, generation of employment opportunities was emphasized. Again, its behavior was similar to the fifth plan and sixth plan. Only seventh plan also proceeded in the same way. It talked about the inclusiveness, but the effort was it emphasized that reduction of unemployment should be ensured. Because if people would be unemployed, then nothing can be done in the economy. If the people are willing to work, if they are able to work, and if they are not getting jobs. So in that case, the economy will not prosper. Eighth plan was somewhere different from the previous plans. In this plan, once again, only the agriculture and allied sector was emphasized. Primary sector was emphasized along with the industrial sector. Allied sector includes the activities like poultry, farming, the mining activities, animal husbandry. All those activities are a part of allied sector. So in this particular case, the agriculture and allied sector was emphasized along with the manufacturing sector. Effort was made in order to ensure growth in the exports and imports, and whatever deficits were there in the economy, the efforts were being made in order to reduce those deficits. In this particular plan, although the mention of inclusive setup was there in fourth, fifth, fifth, sixth, and seventh plan, but this eighth plan was totally silent about the inclusive growth concept. In ninth plan, once again, the mention of marginalized groups was there. Self-help group approach was emphasized. Panchayati Raj institutions and their promotion was emphasized in ninth plan. It was asserted that if the level of living of the poor is not improved, then the economy will not flourish. The economy would remain stagnant only. So, in order to revive the redundant and stagnant economy, it was emphasized that marginalized groups should be they should do something better. Efforts were made in order to train them through NGOs. The role of NGOs was emphasized in this particular plan. It was the 10th plan, wherein the reflections of inclusiveness were there, but formal recognition was not there. 10th plan worked similar to the 8th plan, wherein inclusiveness was not much discussed. In 8th plan, there was a total mention of total decline of mention of inclusiveness concept. However, this plan gave reflections of it, but not formally recognize it. It emphasized that improvement in literacy should be done. The disparities that are existing in literacy should be gender disparity should be removed, and mother mortality rate should be they should be reduced. Access to potable drinking water should be there, and the clearing of the polluted water of polluted water of the rivers was also emphasizing that it was 10th plan only, wherein the massive work was done in the rivers of India also. This was the 10th plan wherein all these things were done. Certain reflections were there in the form of improvement in literacy, and gender biases should be removed in all these reflections were there, but formal recognition of inclusive growth was not there in 10th plan as well. 11th plan, which commenced in 2007 to 2012. It was a revolutionary plan because it started in the logo towards more and inclusive growth. It was the first plan that formally gave recognition to the concept of inclusiveness, and it was much discussed that yes, the several sections of the society who are somehow being excluded from the eyes of the richer strata people, affluent societies, and planners and policy makers who have they also need some work on them. So this particular plan advocated the inclusion of several sections of the society. It was emphasized that the gender inequality should be totally removed, and equality should be ensured in terms of income, gender, asset distribution, wealth distribution. It was emphasized in this plan only. Human development indicators like literacy, education, health, maternal and infant mortality rates. It was emphasized that all these HDIs they need improvement in the 11th plan only. 12th 5-year plan, it also took the legacy of 11th 5-year plan, and it asserted that yes, we need to work on the inclusive setup only, and it emphasized that faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth should be there. It started and it inherited the logo of inclusive growth from 11th plan, and then it preceded the sustainable development. So in this, once again, the concept of inclusive was discussed. It commenced in 2017, 12 to 2017. Thereafter, the Planning Commission did not give any plans to us. However, the agency the governing body, the agency that replaced the Planning Commission of India, that is Niti Aayog, it gave 3 subsequent annual plans to us, and in those plans also it was emphasized that yes, we need to benefit the poor, we need to take the poor people in our ambit only, and only when we join hands with the poor people, the growth will be flourishing and it will be growing. There comes the macroeconomic indicators of inclusive growth. If we look at we can see on one side there's a child who is consuming the food. There are no proper accommodation that is being provided to the child is sitting just beside a slum. Then in the next picture there are some of the kids who are not having clothing with them. Another third picture wherein the people, the kids are they are sitting in a queue, asking for food. They are shabbily dressed. They are not properly dressed and clad. And the last one wherein the sharing of food is being done, but just one plate for three people here. So we say that if I remember the time wherein in 2016 the growth rate of 7.6% was there. I also remember the year 2018 wherein I studied in Economic Times that Indian economy is lying on the 7th place, and most probably it was in Economic Times only it was written that it would be soon leaving behind 2 nations. Those were France and UK, and it would come on the 5th place as far as GDP was concerned. I remember those days. Now, if we see that the days are other way around, wherein the GDP is in the negative, reflecting the negative figures. It is in minus 23.9. So it is a separate thing. But yes, in 20 it is in negatives. But there used to be a time when Indian economy was in a flourish state, and at that time also, when we were saying that Indian economy lies on the 7th place and as far as GDP is concerned, these people and the people and the kids like this and the people at large like this, they were also living life like this, wherein people were demanding food. They were facing hunger, they were facing starvation. So if on one side we have roads, beautiful roads, underpasses, and good bridges on one hand, we do have some people here who are dying of hunger, starving of hunger, who are having stunted growth rates, who are malnourished, and who are facing the hunger death also. In order to keep these things in the mind, I took the macroeconomic indicators which exhibit the impediments or the roadblocks in the inclusive growth. Yes, inclusive growth can be there. We can join hands with the poor people, but these indicators reflect actual state of Indian economy. I have taken on one side global hunger index. What this global hunger index is all about. Global hunger index is an index. It is an index that is calculated in order to ascertain the level of hunger and starvation in an economy. Okay, it is calculated from one on region basis, nation basis, and the motive is to ascertain the exact level of hunger in any hunger and starvation in any economy. IFPRI is the agency that calculates it every year. Every year, these calculations are done in the month of October. For 2020, the calculation would be done in the month of this upcoming October. So this is International Food Processing and Reconstruction Institution that basically takes care of the calculation of Global Hunger Index. It emphasized that India's place in GHI's Global Hunger Index, it fell from 83 in 2000 to 97 in 2016. I read this thing and then, I was wondering that this is not the value of GHI. This is a rank which India is holding. It is India's place. This is India's rank. So we were holding 83 rank as far as Global Hunger Index was concerned in 2000 year, and in 1997 our rank fell to 97. We would be happy. The index is rising. If from 83 it is 97, but this is a rank. You were holding 83 rank in 2000, wherein just 82 nations were before you. And in 2016, the situation worsened. If you remember, 7.6% growth rate. We were having GDP of 7.6% at the time, and in 2018 only. And as far as global hunger index is concerned, we were holding 97th rank at that time. 96 nations were before Indian economy, and Indian economy was lying below 96 nations as far as global hunger index is concerned. Global hunger index says that if the value is 0, then there is no hunger. If the value is 100, then there is massive hunger. Or if the value is 1, there is massive hunger in the economy. Okay. When we talk about this, and if we are getting higher and higher ranks, then it means that economy is getting worsened and worsened. So everything being worse off in that case. If we see just after our structural LPG reforms, 1991 reforms, in 1992, the Indian economy was holding 76th rank. Then in 2000, the rank was 83. Means the situation in just after economic reforms, 76 rank was there. We were on this. If you take this as a base year, then in 2000, the condition worsened because the rank deteriorated. The things became worsened. The things became bad, and Indian economy showed that there is massive hunger and starvation in Indian economy. In 2008. In 2008, situation further worsened, and it was asserted that Indian economy is even it has crossed the 100th rank. It was there in the newspapers also that Indian economy is striving. In Indian economy, masses they are striving and they are dying of hunger. In 2016, India was holding 97th rank out of 118 countries. So situation became better than before as compared to the previous years. But the situation was worse also because there were 96 nations who were in a better state as far as the comparison of GHI is concerned. When we come on to year 2017, if we see the graph, if we can see that from the, if we see it from the graph is in the horizontal plane, and it is again showing the GHI ranks only. The Pakistan is lying below Indian economy, and it is holding 106th rank. We were happy to see this, and because in 2017 we got 100th rank. Situation became worse because we were at 97th rank in 2016, and in 2017 we are having we have moved down in the ranks, and the rank is 100. Means 99 nations are better off, and Indian economy is holding 100th rank. Pakistan was not in a better off state, and it was in a worst state. But if you see carefully, the underdeveloped countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, we call these countries as underdeveloped, and we call Indian economy as a developing or a developed nation. A developed nation is holding 100th rank, and the underdeveloped nation is holding 88th rank and 72 rank, which is being held by Bangladesh and Nepal respectively in the this particular diagram. So we can see that Indian economy is, as far as hunger and starvation indices are concerned, Indian economy is even worse than the Nepal and Bangladesh country economies, which are so-called underdeveloped economies. When we talked about, when we measured the economies on the development paradigm. In 2018, if you see on the left side, there are ranks given, and there are countries like Belarus and Bosnia. These are the countries. If you see carefully, they are holding rank from 1 to 15. These are 15 countries, and they are holding first rank. And if the Bulgaria, which is the 16th country, is holding 16 ranks, means these are the countries who are doing really well as far as hunger and starvation indices are concerned. But if you see carefully on the right side, 001 rank, Belarus, then Bosnia, all these are performing well. Why they are on the first paradigm? It's not that their GHI value is equal. It's just that their GHI score is less than 5. So if they are holding a particular, there are ranges. If low GHI, its value is from 0 to 0 means no hunger, from more than 0 to less than 9.9, less than equal to 9.9. There are different parameters for that: low, moderate, then severe, alarming, and severely alarming. These are the values which are there to measure the global hunger index. At first, it is less than 9.9, which reflects low GHI. Then we move on to the moderate GHI, wherein the value is from 10 to 9, less than 19, less than equal to 19.9. Then from 20 to the next paradigm is serious, where from 20 to 34.4, and therefore from 35 to 49.9, equal to and less than 49.9, and if it is 50 or more, then it is extremely alarming. So these are the countries who have secured less than 5, and these are the calculations which are done by IFPRI only. So this is how we read the data pertaining to global hunger indexes. So these are the economies who are performing really well, and they are taking care of the segment of the society, and they are performing really well as far as global hunger indices are concerned. Then if you see in 2018, India is holding 103 rank. In the previous slide, India was holding, Indian economy was in 2017, if you remember, it was holding 100th rank. Then 2000, as far as 2018 is concerned, it is holding 103. The more rank you are getting means the situation is getting worsened and worsened. As far as 2019, the situation became little bit better because Indian economy was stood at 102 rank here. But if you see carefully, just above Indian economy stands is the Pakistan economy, which was earlier performing bad on starvation and hunger indices. It has become better as compared to Indian economy, and to the utter shock, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, they are holding 73, 88th, and 94th position as far as GHI is concerned. And Indian economy, the so-called flourished and prospering economy, is holding 102 rank, which is and this became a big headline, and there was a big buzzword related to this, because Indian economy had somehow performed well, because in 2018 the value was 103. We have become better, because here this time we have moved one platform above, and we have attained the rank of 102. But the improvement is there, but it is not that significant also. The next inequality indices I'm going to discuss is Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient is a measure of inequality in an Indian economy. If the value of Gini coefficient is 0, it is very good for an economy, that there is no inequality in the economy. If the value is 1 or 100, means there are massive and perfect inequality in the economy exists. It was in one of the OECD report 2011, it was asserted that in Indian economy the inequalities have doubled, almost doubled, and India is among worst performers among the emerging economies. It was also asserted that in Indian economy, richest 1% controls 60% of the total wealth of the Indian economy. Then an introspection into Gini coefficient, if it is made, it shows that yes, in 1990 the value of Gini coefficient was 45, nearly about 50. It is approximately rising to the level of 50. So inequalities were there. In 2013, because the value Gini coefficient is rising from 45 to 50, inequalities increased in the economy. In 2017, value was 47.9. 2018, it was stagnant at 47.9. In March 2020, the value is 35.2. Means inequalities in Indian economy on papers and on apparently there is a reduction in the inequalities. Work is being done in order to do that, but still majority of the work remains, because we are attaining we are getting better in this as far as inequalities are concerned, though we keep on saying that 1% of the people, they hold 60% of the total wealth. It keeps on coming again and again, and then another newspaper emphasizes that 1% of the people control 70% of the total wealth. There are different opinions related to this, but yes, as far as Gini coefficient is concerned, we are improvising over the inequality coefficient as far as Gini coefficient is concerned, but still a value of 35.2 is too much for Indian economy, wherein it is 0 represents no inequality. So 35 represents a huge value for the economy. We need to work on this index as well. Now, what we conclude from the presentation is that as far as hunger and starvation index, in Indian economy, hunger, starvation, unemployment, poverty, these are the population explosion. These are the major problems that are hindering the growth of Indian economy. We can the white people doing white collar job can help in enhancing the GDP, national income, per capita income, real per capita income. These indices can be raised, because if affluent strata of people or upper strata of people will work, the income would be generated in an economy. But if you study it in a microeconomic level, if you see it minutely, then the incomes of people who are who are in shackled state and who are representing poor or very poor in the economy, their incomes are these daily wage workers, these fruit sellers, vegetable sellers, petty shop holders, coffee shop holders. Their incomes are not rising much. So efforts should be made in order to cover up those things wherein the Indian economy is facing the lacunas. We need to work on the hunger indices. We need to provide employment to these people who are not properly literate, they are not properly educated. We need to train them through vocational training, or through the training can be provided through NGOs also. So as far as this is concerned, we are improving on the inequality indices, but hunger and starvation indices which are related to the poverty, we are getting worse, and in that case we have become better in that, but still much remains to be done. Okay, so the next thing is what can be done in order to strengthen the Indian economy. Fiscal consolidation is required. In fiscal consolidation, what we need to do, we need to go for certain taxation policies wherein the tax dodging not paying the taxes and then not filing properly the ITRs. So the tax dodging and the tax non-payments, all those activities which are unscrupulous activities, there should be a check on those activities. And if we are if we are getting taxes, there should be proper appropriation of that expenditure in a particular direction. The next thing is the review of policy on agriculture and labor. When we know agriculture and labor intensive industries are those industries wherein massive unskilled people would be involved. So there is a need to review this policy, and more and more employment opportunities should be provided to the people. They should be, although subsidies they are being provided seeds and fertilizers, pesticides at subsidized rates, but more effort should be made in order to make them better. Education all is being emphasized, and here in inclusive setup, the Directorate of Education is working hard in order to make differently abled students sit along with the inclusive the students in the inclusive setup. The special educators are being appointed. They are being appointed for that purpose. The efforts are being done, but there should be a proper monitoring of these efforts, because not every educational institution is following that policy. We need to keep a check on those institutions who are not, despite of the orders of the Directorate of Education, who are not abiding by those laws. So we need to be careful, and there should be proper monitoring of those institutions. There should be increased expenditure on health. More and more government expenditure should be done on education, on health, on improving the infrastructure, so that the economy gets strengthened. Then the next thing is creation of equal opportunity. There should be no biases. This job should, HR jobs are meant for girls, and marketing jobs, because it is door-to-door selling and it may be involving the vehicles, and also this is just meant for the boys. It's not that. Everybody is equal, and everybody has got their own knowledge, skill and expertise. There should be no biases related to that, and there should be equality of opportunity that should be available to everybody. And it's not only the creation that matters, it is the access to those opportunities that also matters here. Okay, so finally I would like to thank all the Ryan publishers for giving me an opportunity to present a webinar on this, and moreover thank you so much audience for patient listening. Thank you so very much.
A very big thanks to our resource person, Dr. Priyanka, for her valuable speech and her presentation, and for highlighting the key points related to this topic, the framework of Indian inclusive growth, planning initiatives, macroeconomic indicators, inclusive growth, concept of growth, macroeconomic indicators of inclusive growth, etc. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation and your speech. I kindly request the participants to share their comments and queries in the YouTube chat box. I guess there are no more questions or queries. So we can close this session. On behalf of RAN Publishers, I would now like to thank all our participants for spending your quality time with us, and some of our participants who have been constantly attending our webinars and supporting us from day one. I would now like to thank them for their constant support, and a very good evening again to each one of you. Thank you so much for making this session a successful one. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.